All right, here we go. Chapter 33. Mama wouldn't allow Fritz and me to go back to the tunnel the next day, not even to the garden. But Officer Mueller had warned us that time was our enemy. So I decided even if there was something small I could do to help, I would. We needed to know how wide the death strip was, and the only place I could get a decent view of it was from Anna's bedroom window. Somehow I had to beg, swindle, or steal my way inside. Fritz drew me a picture that explained how to estimate the distance of the strip. The Berlin Wall was 3.5 meters high. I had to look at it and pretend it was laid out flat on the ground. Then I had to imagine another wall behind it, and so on across the entire death strip. Try to be as accurate as you can, he whispered in my ear, but if you're going to make any errors, estimate a distance wider than we need. Yeah, no kidding, huh? The worst possible mistake is us to come to the surface inside the death strip. Since Mama didn't know about Anna's and my dissolved friendship, she gladly gave permission for me to visit her. I knew she believed seeing Anna would weaken my resolve to leave East Berlin, but if anything, it would be just the opposite. My pulse was racing when I knocked on Anna's door. Despite the great number of laws I had broken over the past few weeks, none of them caused me anywhere near the guilt that I felt now. I had nothing to offer Anna, either as a gift or an apology, and although I was bathed and my hair was combed and I was in one of my few remaining nice outfits, I felt unnatural, as if the sweat and dirt I earned each day in the tunnel had become the real me. Anna's mother answered the door and at first didn't seem at all pleased to see me, but she called for Anna, and then with a voice like an icicle, she invited me in. There, I was in her apartment, though I had only been allowed in as far as the front door. I could see Anna's bedroom from here, but that wasn't good enough, and once in there, I needed time to look out the window. That would require several uninterrupted minutes. Hello? Anna entered the front room and stopped far short of where I stood. She looked as uncomfortable as I felt, but since I had come to her home, it was my job to repair things. Can we talk somewhere? I asked. In her room would have been nice, but I couldn't ask for too much too fast. Besides, now that I was here with her, I really did want us to talk. Anna awkwardly motioned me toward her couch. I followed her there, and we sat on either end so close, and yet it felt as though an ocean divided us, or a wall. I started. You came to help on the garden, and I wouldn't let you. I've thought a lot about that since then. I'm sorry. You've changed, Gerda, Anna said. You're frustrated or angry all the time. You're jumpy around others and distant. It's almost like like I'm what? I hoped she wouldn't accuse me of trying to escape, because I'd have to deny it, and I really didn't want to lie to her any more. But I had to ask. Anna frowned. Like you're unhappy, I suppose. I miss being your friend, I said softly. That wasn't a lie. Do you? She asked. Because sometimes I think you do, and then other times it's like you don't want me anywhere near you. I'm sorry, I said. I wish you could understand. I want that too. Anna looked sideways at me. Is there anything you can say to me to explain anything? The way she emphasized the final word worried me. Was she asking me to explain my odd behavior over the last several weeks? Because the answer involved telling her the biggest secret of my life, and I could never reveal that. Anna's mother came into the room to dust, and Anna quietly rolled her eyes at me. I understood. This was a tough conversation, and having an adult in the room didn't make things any easier. She stood and motioned for me to follow her. My heart jumped. We were going to her room. I would have been more excited, except that I couldn't help but feel like a traitor in the face of her trusting attitude. She wanted a chance to repair our friendship, but I was only here as a clumsy sort of spy. Anna's room was the same as it had been, simple and sparse, and painted in a cream color that somehow reflected gray. I'd always thought of it as boring, even depressing, but Anna seemed to like the simplicity. As soon as I entered, my eyes went directly to her window, but the curtains were closed. It feels dark in here. It was a ridiculous thing to say, considering her curtains were white, and plenty of light shone through, but I was committed to it now. I sat at the head of her bed where I'd have the best view. She took my hint and widened the curtains, though from my angle I couldn't see as much as I wanted. How do you enjoy gardening? She asked. Pulling my attention from the window, I shrugged. It's not as fun as I thought it would be. It could be a long time before we see if anything grows, if you ever see it. I did a double take, but Anna only smoothed out her bed cover. I mean, since you planted so late in the year. Right. I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with this conversation. Our friendship was hanging on by threads, and there was nothing I could do to change that. I was here for one reason only. First, I had to get Anna out of the room. It required me to abandon my pride, but it had to be done. The problem is, we haven't had much to eat for a while. Anna responded just as I knew she would. Do you want something to eat now? We have plenty of food. Maybe a sandwich, I suggested. That would take some time to make. It also sounded truly wonderful. Okay. As Anna slid off her bed and left, I went to work. I made sure her door was shut and then crossed her to her window. I could see the top corner of the Welcome Building from here, but not all the way to the ground. That was a relief. It meant she couldn't be spying on us if that was ever her intention. If I stood at just the right angle, my view of the death strip was better than what I'd expected. In fact, there was a dark area inside the death strip that was probably very close to where we were tunneling. That made it easier to know where to measure. Fritz said the wall was 3.5 meters high, about 1.5 times his height. In my mind, I laid it out flat. That was 3.5 meters into the death strip. I imagined another one behind it and then another. I glanced at this area several times before, but never really considered how much wider it was than I thought. When I stood in the tunnel, I imagined us being at least halfway across, maybe even more, but we weren't anywhere near that far. Another length of wall went down in my mind, and another. The farther I went, the harder it was to be sure of my distances. So much of the open area looked the same as everywhere around it, and no matter where I stood, I was still at an odd angle. In fact, I might have lost track altogether if I didn't have that dark patch of ground to keep me oriented. Gerda? I swerved away from the window, so startled that I jumped, which must have looked very odd to Anna. Her eyebrows pressed low. What are you doing? Nothing important. I shut the curtain and walked over to take the sandwich from her. My mouth was full with the first bite when I added, "Thank you for the food." "There's more I can do to help," Anna said. "My mother talked to me just now. We know a lot of your clothes have been ruined in the garden this summer, and there's some things I've outgrown." She walked over and opened her small closet. "Would it offend you to take any of the things I can't use?" She started to pull some outfits from her closet, but my focus was on a pair of her boots on the floor. Not the brown pair she had worn when she visited me in the garden patch before, but her usual black ones. Clumps of mud still clung to the soles, and what was dry had flaked off to the floor. I had seen so much dirt in the last few weeks that if there was anything I could recognize, it was the dark soil we had tunneled out from beneath the Welcome Building. Anna had been to the garden patch recently. Maybe she had gone farther than that. I forgot about the clothes. Anna was laying out on the bed, and even about the sandwich in my hand. "I need to go," I announced, already halfway to the door. "I forgot something." "Gerda, don't. Where are you going?" Anna called after me. "Home." "I'm sorry, was it the clothes? Did I do something wrong?" Oh, yes, she certainly had, but behind her innocent facade, she had to know this wasn't about the clothes. I'd always known there's a risk of someone I knew becoming a spy against us, but never in a million years would I have expected it to be Anna. There was no longer any question of our friendship. All that remained was to wonder just how much of an enemy she had become. All right, write that $1 summary.